Today, I'm going to do a walkthrough of the 6.5 by 8.5 mini album. I'll show you all of the features and we'll talk about a tutorial. Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums, and I have a project share to show you. I made this mini album using some paper and some solids from Moda scraps. It's an Italian paper company, and I really was drawn to the look of this. So I will take you inside, and then at the end of the video I'll talk about the tutorial. So the front, I used a die that I had in my stash of a simple snowflake. I just needed some focal point, and since this paper did not come with any decorative cut-aparts, it had little journal cut-aparts, but nothing real decorative, I had to make something. So I did the snowflake, I layered it on a couple of pieces of the paper, and then I wrapped a piece of chipboard as a gift, wrapped some twine around it, added a couple of sprigs of evergreen, again from a die in my stash, and added a bow. Now, this image was replicated in one of the papers. In the paper, there was a half sheet of very small verbiage. This says Merry Christmas. I know it's hard to read, but believe me, it does. And it's white on black, really thin letters. That's why it's so hard. It would make a really pretty Christmas card, but I used it as a focal point on the cover. I layered that on some off-white paper, on some red, off-white, and then put that on the album. So as I said, it's 6.5 by 8.5, and it's got a 2 1/4 inch spine. Inside the front cover, isn't the paper gorgeous? Inside the front cover is a flap, and you open up the flap to find there is a waterfall here. So these are 6 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch size, so you could put your 4x6 photos here without any trimming. I think there's room for 16 photos. And then, of course, even on the bottom. And then even if you wanted to, you could put a photo here and one on the back of this flap. That is held down with a magnet. Now, I did put I did put paper underneath just because this is 6.5. Is this 6? No, this is 6 1/4 inches wide. So since the album is 6.5, there was still a 1/4 of an inch to add to it. You can see some of the cardstock I put underneath. I had in my stash a Tim Holtz die, and I felt like the images were very similar to these images. Maybe not quite as detailed, but I still think it went with the paper and added something. And like I said, there were no cut-aparts. They were available with the collection, but by the time I got the collection, scrapbook.com did not have them in stock. Now, they might have gotten them back in stock now because this was a real pretty paper. This mini album has 5 pages. Each one is a hidden pocket page. I just put a strip of this diagonal stripe paper on. I think that's an inch wide. I put it on front and back, and I left this rest of it plain. Now, what you could do is you could put your 4x6 photo. I mean, we've got landscape photos here. Now you could put your portrait photo here. You could even put a 5x7 photo here if you wanted to, or you could put 2 smaller photos on each side. So that is the reason I left that blank. There was no reason to put a photo mat on here because we don't know what size photo you might be putting in there. So that goes back into our page. Now this page, I stayed with the simplistic style of the paper. This flap will open, that flap will open, room for a large photo there and a couple of small photos here. Now, another die I had some holly berries, which were very similar to what was on the paper, and I just added that just to break up the dark green paper here. And then there is our photo mat. So now this page, we get into a little bit more of the different details. This is that package paper. It's got, looks like twine wrapped around it and a couple of sprigs of greenery, and some of them have a heart on it. So now this will open like that. This is held down with a magnet here. Room here for a good sized photo, and here we've got a side loading pocket with a couple of photo mats. I really love that paper. I thought that was pretty. If you didn't get this paper to make a mini album, it would make gorgeous cards. And then here I did another chipboard wrap and used some twine, another sprig, and a heart, again replicating the image here. Here's one of those journal cut-aparts that I was talking about. See, it's very plain. There's not much on it. I just added paper to the back, but it makes a nice little thing to put in the pocket. And then here we've got room for your photos and room for maybe small photos, or just leave it plain so you can see the pretty paper. Here's our hidden photo mat. Again, this is 2 side loading pockets, very simple. I loved this Santa paper. I took extra scrap of the paper and cut out, I think it's a 1 1/4 inch circle, and laid that on 1 1/2 inch circle, and used that as sort of a tab pull for these 3x4 cut-aparts, which have some spots for journaling. Or you could just add a photo to it. And then I added some larger photo mats inside, left the back plain just so you can add whatever size you want, but that's where you can add your pictures. And as you can see, this is a very simple design. Now, I'll let you know, I've done other mini albums using this exact same tutorial, but they're a little more decorative because there were more elements. The paper was vintagey and allowed for a lot of different decorations, but I just felt like the style of the paper led me to keep this very simple. And here is our hidden photo mat for that page. So here I have a stacked pocket. This page has envelopes, which by the way would also work for Valentine's Day. But I made a couple of envelopes. I took one of the journaling cards and stuck it inside here. Here's another one of the journaling cards. And here is just some paper with another one of the journaling cards there. And then as a decoration, I made a small, wider envelope. I just glued it on 3 sides, so we've got a little spot for journaling inside. And then there's some Velcro holding this, so there is another little spot for journaling. I just wanted something a little different there. And then here is our side loading hidden pocket. Love this paper. I thought it would be a great way to close the album. I took a couple of the cute little gingerbreads. I fussy cut them out, added a little heart on the top, layered that on a circle, which is on a scallop circle. And I just glued it around on basically 2 sides and made a little cut apart so you could add photos or journaling to the back. So here is a large pocket on the last page, the last of the cut aparts, a simple photo mat, and another photo mat. I do have this, a magnet in here to keep that closed. I use magnets from Total Element Magnets. It was a good size magnet, but they're so thin and so strong. The back page simply has some of that gorgeous paper with the greenery, a little stripe of that diagonal, little strip of that diagonal stripe paper, and some of the plain paper. There we go. Again, it's a very simple mini album. The good thing about that is it's fast to decorate. So even if you didn't have paper that was as minimalistic as this, you could still use this style of decorating. So let's talk about a tutorial. I have a tutorial on my channel for a 6.5 by 8.5 mini album. I have made it again in Winnie the Pooh Christmas paper. So if you're interested, look in the link in the description box. I have a playlist that has this walkthrough and whatever other mini albums I made using this same tutorial. There is also a file in my coffee shop. It's available for a nominal fee if you want the cutting guide. Otherwise, you don't need it. You can just go to the tutorial and grab a pen and paper and write down the measurements as I go through it. So I just wanted to show you a different way of decorating a mini album using the same tutorial that I've done other mini albums this month with. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fabulous day. And by the way, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll see other videos related to this one. And I am trying to reach a goal of having 10,000 subscribers, and I'd like for you to join my subscriber family. Thanks again for watching. Have a fabulous day.